say, lost for the last time.
You're gonna be the first guy who went home last season and who won this season. Like, that's what I believe.
One thing I learned about all of this entertainment business thing is to just take it easy and to remember that it's not, none of the fame or money is worth your health or sanity.
Nolan Neal, the star of America's Got Talent and The Voice, who moved millions with his powerful performances, lost his long and painful battle with addiction. Despite the fame, the applause, and the second chances, he couldn't escape the struggles that haunted him. It's heartbreaking to think that someone with so much talent and potential was trapped in a cycle he just couldn't break. His death wasn't sudden. It was the tragic end of a fight many didn't fully see. How did it all come to this? And could anything have changed the path Nolan was on? Nolan Neal's rise to fame and the tragic fall. Nolan Neal's journey to fame began with undeniable talent and an unforgettable voice. Audiences first got a taste of his magic when he appeared on The Voice in 2016. Performing the powerful rendition of Elton John's Tiny Dancer, Nolan immediately made an impact on both the judges and viewers. His story wasn't just about his voice, though. It was about his perseverance and comeback spirit. Having once been signed to a major record label, Neal had experienced the harsh ups and downs of the music industry before stepping onto that stage. As Adam Levine, Blake Shelton, Miley Cyrus, and Alicia Keys turned their chairs, the excitement was palpable. He ultimately chose Adam Levine as his coach, a decision that many fans cheered for, thinking it would elevate his career. But what most people didn't know at the time was that Nolan was battling demons even then. Behind the scenes, he was dealing with struggles far deeper than any camera could capture. Struggles that would later take a significant toll on his life. After The Voice, Nolan's journey continued on America's Got Talent in 2020. His audition, where he performed his original song, Lost, struck an emotional chord with both the judges and viewers. Simon Cowell, known for his tough critiques, was visibly moved, calling the performance honest and raw. But Neal wasn't just any contestant. He used the platform to speak about his addiction struggles. Nolan revealed how he had hit rock bottom multiple times, yet managed to pull himself back up, crafting Lost during one of his darkest moments. His performance wasn't just a song, it was a cry for help. But fame wasn't the magical fix. It was reported that Neal's journey with AGT was both a high and a low. Rumors swirled about the pressure he faced while performing on live TV. Pressure that seemed to weigh heavily on him, especially with his history of addiction. The public admiration, combined with the intense spotlight, was allegedly overwhelming. Nolan had moments where he looked ready to break free from his past, but those close to him knew the battle was far from over. There was even a bit of behind-the-scenes controversy during his time on AGT. Allegedly, Neal had some disagreements with the show's producers regarding his song choices and the direction his performances were taking. These disagreements weren't publicized, but were whispered about among fans and insiders, as Neal seemed increasingly frustrated in the later rounds of the competition. Some speculated that this tension only added to his internal struggles, though it's important to note that these claims are alleged and not confirmed by Nolan himself. Still, despite all of this, his performances remained captivating. Fans could sense the raw emotion in every note, and his vulnerable storytelling left a lasting impression. An artist who can connect with fans so deeply and in such a personal way comes once in a lifetime. But what many didn't realize was that Neal's rise to fame came with its own tragic cost. The very fame he had worked so hard to achieve was also a source of immense pressure and inner turmoil. And the worst part is, we've heard the same story so many times in the world of showbiz. Looking back, it's hard not to wonder, did the fame and attention from The Voice and AGT actually contribute to the struggles Nolan was desperately trying to overcome? The dark struggle with addiction he couldn't escape. While Nolan Neal's voice touched the hearts of millions, his personal life was far from the picture of success that many saw on TV. Addiction was a battle he fought openly, but it was a battle that began long before his time in the spotlight. In various interviews and even on America's Got Talent, Nolan shared that his struggle with substance abuse started at a young age. He admitted that his first encounter with drugs happened when he was just a teenager, a dark path that would follow him throughout his life. But what truly shocked fans was how candidly he spoke about hitting rock bottom multiple times. Despite the fame and praise he earned from The Voice and AGT, Neal's addiction never truly loosened its grip on him. In fact, it's alleged that even during his time on both shows, he was battling relapses behind the scenes. While performing on stage, Nolan portrayed the image of someone who had overcome his demons. But behind the curtain, the reality was far more complicated. In one interview, Neal admitted that while he was shooting The Voice, he wasn't entirely sober, a confession that stunned many who had viewed him as a symbol of recovery and redemption. What makes Nolan's story even more heartbreaking is the continuous cycle he found himself in. Every time he seemed to be pulling his life together, something would trigger a relapse. He openly talked about losing his father to suicide, a devastating event that deeply affected him and, some say, pushed him further into addiction. Neal was known for saying that music was his therapy, yet even that couldn't completely save him from the mental and emotional toll his addiction took. But the pressures didn't just come from his personal life. The demands of the music industry are notorious, and Nolan faced his own share of challenges. It's alleged that some industry insiders were concerned about his ability to handle fame while struggling with sobriety, and there were whispers about management and record label issues. Some believe that Nolan was under immense pressure to live up to the image of a clean and recovered artist, which in itself was a heavy burden. One of the most gut-wrenching revelations came when Nolan shared that he had been sober for almost a year before he relapsed just prior to his AGT audition. He admitted this openly to the world, revealing the fragility of his sobriety and the continuous battle he was waging. The bravery it took to confess such personal details was admired by many, but it also left people wondering, was the constant public scrutiny making his fight against addiction harder? Was being in the spotlight pushing him back toward the very thing he was trying to escape? Another shocking moment came when Neal discussed how he was forced to perform while in the midst of his struggles. It's alleged that during certain performances on AGT, Neal was visibly under the influence, something that concerned those around him. Still, he pushed through, delivering powerful performances that masked the inner turmoil he was experiencing. For many, it was a devastating reminder that addiction doesn't care about talent, fame, or success. It can take hold of anyone, no matter how high they've climbed. The battle with addiction is always a complex and personal one, but for Nolan, it seemed as if the highs and lows of his career were directly tied to his struggles. Every triumph on stage was followed by a difficult moment behind the scenes, and even when he was doing well professionally, addiction was a constant presence in his life. It was clear that despite his efforts to stay sober, the fight was never over. So what was it that kept pulling Nolan back into the grips of addiction, even when he seemed to be doing so well? Was it the pressure of the music industry, the unresolved trauma from his past, or perhaps the never-ending challenge of maintaining sobriety in such a public and demanding life? The heartbreaking legacy Nolan left behind. Nolan Neal may have left this world at the young age of 41, but the legacy he left behind is far from forgotten. His music, filled with emotion, raw honesty, and vulnerability, continues to resonate with fans all over the world. His most well-known songs, such as Lost and Send Me a Butterfly, are haunting reminders of his struggles and pain. Listening to his lyrics now, after his death, it's hard not to hear the deep cries for help embedded in his music. In many ways, Nolan's songs were his personal therapy, his way of expressing the pain he couldn't always put into words. But Nolan's legacy isn't just his music. It's also the conversations he sparked around addiction, recovery, and mental health. His openness about his struggles broke down barriers, allowing others who were facing similar issues to feel less alone. Fans, fellow musicians, and even strangers reached out to him, expressing how much his story helped them through their own battles. In fact, it's been said that his appearances on AGT and The Voice inspired countless people to seek help for their own addiction issues. Nolan's bravery in sharing his story, despite the pain it caused him, became a beacon of hope for many. Yet his passing also raised questions about the nature of the entertainment industry and its treatment of artists dealing with personal struggles. While Neal had a dedicated fan base, there are some who believe that more could have been done to support him. Allegedly, some close to Neal felt that the pressure to perform and maintain a public persona may have exacerbated his addiction. The intense demands of being on a national stage, while simultaneously fighting personal demons, were perhaps too much for him to bear. In the wake of his death, tributes poured in from fans and fellow artists alike. Many expressed their shock and sadness, stating that Nolan's death was a tragic reminder of how fleeting life can be. But beyond the public tributes, there were quieter, more personal stories shared by those who knew him best. These stories painted a picture of a man who, despite his struggles, was deeply kind, compassionate, and generous. His friends and family spoke of his infectious laughter, his love for his children, and his desire to help others. It's clear that Nolan was much more than just a musician. He was a father, a friend, and a source of light in the lives of those who knew him. However, his passing also left many wondering what could have been. Had Nolan been able to fully overcome his addiction, what kind of music would he have created? What other stories would he have shared with the world? And most importantly, could more have been done to help him in his darkest moments? His sudden death shocks fans in the world. When news broke of Nolan Neal's passing at just 41 years old, it sent shockwaves through the music community and his devoted fan base. On July 18, 2022, the singer was found dead in his Nashville apartment, a devastating end to a life filled with both immense talent and undeniable struggles. The cause of death was later confirmed as an accidental overdose, a tragic but perhaps not surprising outcome given his very public battle with addiction. Yet, even with his history, the news of his death still hit hard, especially for those who had seen him perform so powerfully on national television. Nolan had recently been active on social media, sharing snippets of his life in music, which made his death even more shocking to fans. Some believed he was on the road to recovery again, given the optimism he seemed to project online. However, the truth behind those posts is something only those close to him may truly understand. The contrast between the smiling, hopeful man on Instagram and the one who was struggling in private reflects a painful reality faced by many dealing with addiction. Friends, family, and fans were quick to pay tribute to the late singer. His former colleagues from The Voice and AGT expressed their condolences, with many noting that Neal was a kind soul who had deeply touched those around him. Blake Shelton, one of the judges on The Voice during Nolan's season, took to social media to share his grief, describing him as one of the most genuine guys I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Other contestants from the shows shared stories of their time with Neal, describing a man who, despite his struggles, was always ready to help others and lift their spirits. For fans, though, the grief was more complicated. Many had come to admire Nolan, not just for his talent, but for his openness about addiction. They saw him as someone who was fighting the same battles they were, someone who wasn't afraid to show his scars. His performances on AGT and The Voice had inspired countless people, many of whom reached out to him for support, which he often gave willingly. His passing, therefore, felt like a personal loss to many who had followed his journey. However, some couldn't help but question whether enough was done to support Nolan during his lifetime. Was there more that could have been done to help him overcome his addiction? While it's easy to point fingers after the fact, the reality is that addiction is a complex, deeply personal battle, and no amount of fame or support can guarantee someone's recovery. Still, it raised broader concerns about how society, and particularly the entertainment industry, handles artists struggling with substance abuse. The music industry has long been notorious for the pressures it places on artists, especially those who find fame later in life. For someone like Nolan, who had experienced early career struggles, being thrust back into the limelight through shows like AGT and The Voice may have added an unbearable weight. The constant need to perform, to meet expectations, and to maintain a public persona can exacerbate the mental health issues many performers already face. Some fans pointed out that Neal's passing felt eerily similar to other musicians who had tragically lost their lives to addiction, sparking conversations about the need for better support systems within the industry. But for those closest to Nolan, the focus was on honoring his memory rather than placing blame. His family released a statement expressing their grief, asking for privacy while they mourned. The singer's close friends also shared stories of his kindness, his laughter, and his love for his children. emphasizing that his legacy would be defined by his heart and music, not his struggles. Nolan Neal's death was a tragic reminder that addiction is a relentless disease, and even the most talented, seemingly hopeful individuals can fall victim to it. His passing shocked the world, but it also highlighted the importance of compassion and understanding for those battling addiction, especially in high-pressure environments like the music industry. Fame, addiction, and the mental health crisis no one saw coming. Nolan Neal's death also ignited a larger conversation about the intersection of fame, addiction, and mental health, a conversation that the entertainment industry has struggled with for years. Neal's story is not an isolated one. In fact, his passing echoes the tragic endings of many other stars who struggled with addiction while in the spotlight. But what makes Nolan's case particularly heartbreaking is how openly he had shared his battles with the world, and yet the fame he gained never seemed to alleviate the deeper issues he faced. The truth is, fame often amplifies the very issues that many believe it will solve. For Nolan, the pressures of performing on national television, shows like The Voice and America's Got Talent may have seemed like opportunities to reignite his career. However, these platforms also placed an enormous amount of pressure on him to not only perform at his best, but to do so while maintaining the image of someone who had overcome addiction. The reality, however, was far more complex. It's alleged that during his time on AGT, Neal struggled privately with the pressure to maintain his sobriety. Some close to him reportedly felt that the constant need to appear better in front of the cameras put extra strain on his recovery process. Addiction is a lifelong battle, and the expectation that someone can fully recover simply because they've reached a certain level of success is unrealistic. Yet it's a narrative often pushed in entertainment. But Nolan's struggles were not just about fame, they were also about the underlying mental health issues that so often accompany addiction. He had spoken about depression and the emotional toll that losing his father had taken on him. It's a pain that he carried with him for years, and some believe that it contributed heavily to his addiction. Yet the music industry, like many others, doesn't always provide the necessary support for artists dealing with such issues. Neal's passing has also drawn attention to the broader mental health crisis within the entertainment industry. Over the years, numerous artists have lost their lives to addiction, depression, and suicide, leading many to question whether enough is being done to support performers' mental health. While there are resources available, the fast-paced, high-pressure nature of the industry can often make it difficult for artists to seek the help they need. Do you think there was more that could have been done to help Nolan Neal? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this video interesting, give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. We've got a lot more coming, so make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.